And because you're a Trump supporter, I need to ask you, where do you stand on the chaos, at least in the implementation and in the messaging that has set the world literally on I described a rolling earthquake for the last week?
Sure. Well, look, it's a great question. A lot of folks contact me, and we were discussing earlier, especially overseas, and they asked me, hey, can you help us decode a little bit what's happening here? So, again, we know President Trump's negotiating strategy is about strength and uncertainty, and he has this colossal mixture of those two things that he tries to use to his advantage. There is a lot of uncertainty. I think what has happened here is he said, look, we want to renegotiate our international deals, not just on what the tariff is, but those other taxes and regulations that come into play. So, he had his grand plan of tariffs that came in. A couple things happened. Number one, the stock market dipped, and they knew it would dip, but it fell much harder than they thought, 10, 12%, depending on what indexes you were looking at. But at the same time, you had countries coming in droves, not just a couple, but according to them, up to 70, 75 countries that have contacted the State Department and say, look, we're willing to renegotiate this thing. Let's find a way out. And so those two, kind of the positive and the negative of that, kind of came together, where obviously he made yet a bit of I won't call it a reversal, but a new strategy and decision, and said, well, we're going to pound on China. They clearly don't want to come to the table. They clearly are being stubborn. But you guys are partners. You guys are friends around the world. We're happy to do this, and let's give ourselves 90 days, a 90-day reprieve, and see how we can all strike a better deal. And they're deals that haven't been renegotiated and really looked into for decades for some of these countries.
Okay,
so it's a great opportunity for America, but they gotta close these deals.
Okay, so Governor Sununu, you're putting a good spin on it, and we're talking, about the reaction to the reaction, and the markets didn't dip; they tanked. To your point, I want to read from Stephen Miller, who's the president's close associate, who posted, he said, "You have been watching the greatest economic master strategy from an American president in history." Seriously, are they making fun of us? A lot of American commentators are saying, including David Sanger in the New York Times, this has been an experiment in recklessness. No matter which way you cut it, no matter what you want to achieve, the math and the methodology was all over the place and did not add up.
So I agree with the math, because I think a lot of folks agree that formula was a bit odd. They were putting tariffs on places that were only inhabited by penguins. That looked a little weird. So I just don't think there was a lot of double checking, if you will, what the quote unquote math was. But at the end of the day, these are countries that we all agree, at least here in the United States, could use a renegotiation of what that strategy is. Now, what is the net result? Is this a masterclass like some say it is, or is it a complete debacle? We're going to find out. We're literally less than a week in. As I said, I appreciate they're giving themselves 90 days, not a year or 2 years. But they got 90 days. And if they can't renegotiate some of these deals within that 90 days, and I wouldn't even say some, they have to renegotiate a lot of them to justify that it quote unquote worked. Because if not, we're right back where we started 90 days from now. The market's probably going to tank even harder than it did before. I think they know that. So they have they've given themselves a boundary with a heck of a lot of work to achieve those results. And then what I think you'll see is ultimately China really hanging out there on their own. That's the real interesting one here, right? And I appreciate what Trump said in terms, he said he respects Xi. He knows he can be very stubborn and there's a lot of pride there. That's more of a cultural issue that the president is acknowledging needs to be kind of worked around. But he's not going to bend. He's not going. If it takes a hardline trade war with China, good luck outlasting Trump on that one. So my sense is everyone's going to see where some of these countries come in if these deals get negotiated, and then that in itself puts more pressure on China. You'll see Vietnam. That's an interesting one, right? India. Maybe Japan. These will probably be the first folks at the table to want to renegotiate their deals, which puts even more pressure on China as it all develops over the next 3 months.
Vietnam is a bit of a weird one because it doesn't have tariffs, and it was hit with a massive 96, which he then generously halved to 47 or whatever it was. I thought, having Vietnam sell to America was part of the overall strategy of pivoting away from China, and now they get hammered. So again, it's really difficult to understand. Now, you say good luck outlasting Trump, but clearly, can he outlast the bond markets? I think that's what's spooked, and I'm not even an expert on anything economic or market-wise, but the bonds are meant to be safe and secure. And when they started to show something opposite, that's when the White House started to, gather the wagons, so to speak.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think the bond market, even more than the stock market, is what really shook them. Just going back to Vietnam, because I think that's going to be a story as we go forward. To your point, they didn't necessarily have tariffs, but they had all the Chinese companies coming in and using then Vietnam as kind of a gateway. I think the approach to Vietnam will be, believe it or not, similar to Panama. Remember, early on,
Are they going to annex it?
Trump said No, because they cut a new deal. Panama and Trump got together. The administrations got together. They said, we're not going to let China do the Belt and Road type stuff. We're going to not adhere to those 2017 deals and let them buy our ports and all that sort of thing and have the control over the canal. Panama knew that being a friend and an ally to America over the Chinese was more important. And I think that's going to be the approach with Vietnam.